I have my backpack.
Yes.
It's totally.
Then a super chill room.
Super chill. Playing our 2 steps now. Is there anywhere for us to stand? Yeah. Can we just go there?
Okay. Louis Travis.
You can put it into my laptop, just don't like drop it on the floor or anything.
Oh, I should have won on that. You should destroy it.
Please don't destroy my
It
laptop.
would have been adorable to be your matching shoes.
On the eighth
Who's gonna wait for one person?
Jordan, the plan text is that piece of paper. Which actually, I need to read. And
And it makes firmly believe fracking is bad. It would be tight if we were debating fracking. I don't believe that was our decision.
Alright, anybody not ready?
I'm not too bad at 3.
Oh, wait, let me move these things down.
Thanks.
Oh, no, but now I'm not in the picture.
Oh, sorry.
Stalling.
Let's go.
Observation 1 is back on the agreement on agriculture. The community says that any nation can spend up to $19.1 billion on amber box subsidies directly linked to production, but Brazil has a unique demand to WTO to reduce these subsidies to $7.9 billion. With that plan, the U.S. federal government should accede to one or more demands by the Brazilian government concerning the agricultural policy of the United States by reducing amber box subsidies to $7.9 billion. So the res by reducing amber box subsidies to $7.9 billion. Question?
What are amber box subsidies and all about them?
Amber box subsidies are the ones that are directly linked to the actual production of crops, like and things like that. There's international trade treaties and trade law that say that there's a certain level that you can have that is disruptive to international trade without actually
Is this
going
something
on.
the US has?
Yes. So let's see, first of this result of the disputes in the WTO case DS-365 Brazil against the United States concerning domestic support provided by agricultural producers that began in 2007. Second, that this is proactive U.S. action which solves uniquely the analysis that the WTO has ruled in favor of Brazil against the United States before it looked at the cotton case that happened, but this essentially never solved for both of the advantage that we'll get to because it continued to, agricultural subsidies still continue to be a point of tension after that. Advantage 1 is the free trade agreement of the Americas. A is uniqueness that the free trade agreement of the Americas stalled the status quo. It was under consideration for a decade. Talks stalled because of differences between the United States and Brazil. The analysts that they are the co-chairs of the Trade Negotiation Committee, which makes them the 2 most important actors in terms of negotiation of the free trade agreement with America. The B is that at the 4th Summit of the Americas in 2005, 34 countries supported the renewing negotiation, but Brazil was a prominent objector and essentially ended the renewal. It was also because they also controlled the 4 other votes that were against it passing the free trade agreement in the Americas under Mercosur. The 2 that Brazil wants to get better access to agricultural goods, while the U.S. wants to have Brazil lower tariffs on industrial products and intellectual property. And Brazil only refused FTAA in the past because of our refusal to engage in the reduction of agricultural subsidies. The links. Once this would allow for the passage of free trade, the FTAA, the Brazil, as before, the Brazil only objected on because of our agricultural subsidies. Little A, the Brazil controls the other votes of Mercosur countries like Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, which means that where we swayed Brazil means that the FTAA is passed immediately. Second, the negotiations with the FTAA would begin immediately. Obama showed that he wants to actually do free trade agreements. You can look to how we signed one with South Korea in 2011. And we've also been exploring new agreements with the EU and been participating in a forum for Trans-Pacific Strategic Economic Partnership. The internal links. One is that the Fed QE policy is building an asset bubble. Net worth, which is assets plus real estate income minus debt, is equivalent to 2008 levels. And status quo. The end of this is that booms in housing and $65 billion that the Fed puts in the economy every month is making it so that the assets are growing way faster than actual real wages and production, which is leveraging financial firms significant to dangerous levels. The second is the value of financial assets and equity securities are also passing 2008 levels. The third argument is that Fed policy is essentially building up this massive asset and consumption bubble that is going to collapse the economy, which we saw in 2008, except this would be unique because we don't actually have access to Keynesian stimulus anymore because it would cause rampant inflation. We don't actually have the funds to do so because people would never allow us continuously deficit spend. The fourth argument is that the FTA promotes FDI from the United States to other growth markets in Latin America. There are massive consumer bases that are actually growing as these countries continue to grow faster than the United States, which means that it would be net profitable for businesses to start investing in those countries and deflate the bubble. The impacts. Versus that, we do, as I indicated before, financial collapse, versus consumption bubble would automatically immediately lead to economic collapse. We say this immediately lead to resource wars. We would strike out, we would strike out immediately at other countries in order to guard resources that we don't have the ability to get in the United States. We would immediately go nuclear because of triad scenario. Either we die, don't have enough resources to sustain ourselves, or we die from nuclear war. A nuclear war would go to extinction because not enough dust in the atmosphere too. And also synthetic like food chain to add to. We'll call it food price stability. Any uniquenesses that farm studies to support international markets, the ones that U.S. export 50% of its corn production, 50% of its soybean production, 20% of its cotton production, second, the farm studies, the subsidies promote overproduction beyond market equilibrium because each additional unit that's produced costs more than the actual revenues that we get from that, which is why subsidies exist in the first part. The analysis that the subsidies that we're talking about are dispersed on acreage, means that it distorts the amount of acres that are planted by farmers. The little b is that in the 1996 Farm Bill, it led to 8 million more acres of soybeans to be planted and a decrease of 33% of soybean price in 2 years. Because the subsidies exist, that means that at world prices, everybody still has to pay the same amount. The third argument is that the Department of Agriculture admitted that subsidies do these things, and I've done multiple studies showing that farm subsidies essentially incentivize farmers to create and plant more acreage than they would under just a free open market. If you go to links. First, this forces agriculture to be exported at a true market price or indicated at a true market price because any of these subsidies at such a low level means that they wouldn't be destroying the market price. As I indicated before, in the cross-section international trade law says that we can actually have this low level amount of subsidies because it's not going to cause a distortion because it's such a small part of it's such a small amount of the actual total net worth of the entirety of international trade in terms of agricultural goods. Second, this allows international farmers to compete on world markets. Internal links. First, that this promotes local farming, which creates food stability for a couple of reasons. First, that there will be no transportation risks, and so it can be cheaper because you're really close to actual local markets. Which means you can just you can get those closest. The second argument is that when there are price disruptions for global productions, local markets won't be able to solve this back because they can quickly fill in the gaps and adapt to changes in supply and demand much more quicker than it would take for us to ship grain products from the United States to other countries around the world, whereas local markets would be able to do this immediately. The impacts. First, let's do food sensibility is the interlinked internal conflicts. You can look at Egypt and how the conflict in this country erupted because of food price slices. Essentially, our indications food riots are uniquely bad because this is a tri-riot scenario. It's a tri-riot scenario for people because they have to some way be able to feed themselves and their family, or else they're going to die. Which means that they commit uniquely violent crimes. Which means that it always leads to millions of deaths across the world as food scarcity continues in the future. The second impact is that food riots local markets are also key to sell back for government control. When governments are able to control essentially how much food comes in and out of the country via essentially control the valves on how much trade actually comes to the country in terms of agricultural products, means that they control the entirety of the population in order to promote by promoting local farmers and local access to markets. Means that we essentially stop government control of individual people. It means that we sell back the autonomy and democracy, because in a world where the government controls the entirety of your food supply, they control the entirety of your lives. Because it becomes tri-diet, they can essentially stop you from doing anything because they would starve you.
The order is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 AC.
Does that include the background page?
No. Is everybody ready?
Hold on. Small desk.
The United States federal government should decouple Amber Box subsidies from production and market prices and establish a voluntary buyout program for recipients of Amber Box subsidies. Government issued bonds should back funding for new direct transfer payments decoupled from production of market prices. Again, the USFG should decouple Amber Box subsidies from production and market price and establish a voluntary buyout program for recipients of Amber Box subsidies. Government issued bonds should back funding for new direct transfer payments decoupled from production and market prices. There's your copy. Do you have any questions?
Condo?
Yes. competitiveness. The counterplan does not eliminate subsidies, so that when permutation will be separate. It solves decoupling subsidies, removes the negative market effect, and brings us into compliance with WTO regulations and trade subsidies to produce and encourage overproduction in certain commodities, which artificially decrease international prices of goods, and depressing prices benefits the rich countries because of their export demands and because it affects the world market through disadvantageously, like Brazil. Next is that it solves the case Brazil does not feel market effects of our production. Brazil is mad at farmers because farmers can't sell anything. Third argument is that pairing subsidies to market demands results in production levels in previously depressed goods. And fourth argument is that voluntary buyout solves because farmers would take the bait, they would get advance of certainty because they would be paid not to produce, but they would get money in the bank, not relying on the amount that you could produce, which means there's not a variation based on weather patterns. Also, it's proven that they like it. Farmers like it a lot. They have asked for buyout in addition to subsidies every single time. It's because it gives them a single income and the net benefit. The U.S. small farmers can't create internationally because competitors get subsidies and because U.S. production costs are higher. This means that only the small farmers are kept alive through some subsidy structures in place. The plan eliminates those and also eliminates small farmers get bought out by Cargill or they get snowed over by Brazil. We solve this because the counterplan links because counterplan solves the link because it ensures that all small farmers get money to survive. This bolsters small farmers by removing the distortion effects of subsidies, which are the root cause of farmer consolidation. This loss in small farms, which are the necessary shift to a sustainable practice because they are a niche market. This shift will be accelerated by the counterplan. This has a few impacts. First, that it only locks in food security, which means that it's the only way that we can lock in U.S. food security that's not susceptible to distortion or people starving in the U.S. Second argument is that we fail to save small farms. It increases crop diversity upon which all crop production is dependent. This leads to famine and causes extinction. Monoculturing means that all crops are all similarly vulnerable to disease. No biodiversity means that we're capable of wiping out all crops with one pesticide or disease. Means that this is necessary for overall biodiversity. We don't know how to get what a keystone species is, which means the co-extinction rate and the loss of this causes extinction. Your question.
Yeah, so I'm still confused at what your plan does, specifically the second part, issuing bonds to back funding for new transfers. So you're creating new transfers.
We give them money whether or not so right now subsidies are coupled to the amount that you produce, which means that there's an incentive to overproduce. We decouple that, which means that farmers get paid regardless of the amount that they produce, which means that if you get screwed by a drought, you aren't all of a sudden in absolute poverty. Next. The United States federal government should offer to reduce amber box subsidies to $7.9 billion on the condition of EU reciprocation. Again, the United States federal government should offer to reduce amber box subsidies to $7.9 billion on the condition of European Union reciprocation. There's your copy. Do you have any questions? Solvency is that the EU says yes. First, the cotton growers in the EU do not have enough power to overwhelm interest in Germany, Germany, UK, or Northern Europe. Second is that Europe wants to cut subsidies because it will increase the efficacy of their food aid efforts, which are at the heart of the foreign policy. Third is that at a meeting on Friday, Germany proposed giving the EU's foreign service supply new powers over the neighborhood policy development aid. Fourth is that the EU is moving post and pass a subsidies-based economy, and they will only move in partnership with the USFP because France would perceive as U.S. unilateral action as an opportunity to gain market share, which would allow them to build a coalition with the Eastern European states and African allies who would benefit from higher subsidy forms. Next is the German leadership dissent. First is uniqueness. First argument is that Cyprus did not agree to a $5.8 billion bailout deal from the EU, which indicates that Germany is losing its ability to build a coalition among northern states. Second is that the Cyprus Parliament has postponed voting on the package passage on Sunday because they think there will continue negotiations will provide more lucrative bailout strategy. Third argument is the euro fell to its lowest level in 3 months with regard to the dollar. Refusers of Germany would be unable to reach a deal with Cyprus. Fourth argument is because the French President Hollande and the European Union Commissioner Barroso that Europe's competitiveness is being overshadowed by growing Cyprus backlash. Fourth argument is U.S. and Europe are moving together towards to decrease agricultural subsidies because either country does not want you to act unilaterally together because it would in fact give them more of a competitive advantage. At least the plan is perceived as a benefit to European competitiveness because the South French and Eastern Europeans are primarily agricultural economies. Second is that Germany would see this as an opportunity to meet the needs of the Cyprus and be able to assuage key allies. Third argument is the plan wants a agricultural subsidy coalition in the EU, which reverses the gradual trend away from agricultural economy. Internally, since the German bailout economy collapses. Merkel at the end of the leash with German bankers who have had to contact southern nations because they don't want bailouts and also increase money from Germany programs leads to a revenue because it costs offsetting debt, revenue ratio which makes it an attractive currency, and maintaining subsidies in euro terms case, and outweighs independently because it affects more sectors than just the affirmative, and prevents them from accessing the internal aid to their agricultural production impacts is that the skills development of agriculture in the global south cause the markets get flooded with European goods. Terms case, second argument is around Europe cause the global economic collapse. Europe is the keystone of the economy of the U.S. and the Middle East. U.S. is really the largest trading partner in volume, and their banks fund our interest in one of European banks first term pull out of a single currency and term pull out of euro collapse the euro because it collapsed the European Union because our financial institutions are the cornerstone of everything in the EU and collapse the euro. Please do run on the dollar, which is the only internal link that gets China to down by T-bills. The thing, T-bills are the highest possible point, even if they don't cover all of their T-bills, this still would lead to a double-dip recession. You cross by their analysis about why financial ties increase leads to poverty, war, and leads to extinction. Next. Framework claims to be able to discuss and justifications to proceed political questions because all subsequent claims are rendered suspect. This means the methodology comes before political questions that determines how we evaluate the consequences and their independence and of practice representations or the ultimate form of political power legislative incremental change that upholds the WTO as a legitimate decision body. See lists the global neoliberal system which makes radical change impossible and normalizes the logic of neoliberalism. Second is that this private geopolitics have relation mediated by the thought of neoliberalism means the politics now is more dirty and representative of the intention of capital. Third is in the status quo Brazil is trying to promote its own markets but the plan normalizes relations, facilitating global neoliberal integration into the Brazilian system. Brazilian resources not belong to Brazil or their people, but the system of neoliberalism oriented towards the rights of life and agency in reference to their positionality within the neoliberal structure. Only within emancipation of the matter are we able to preserve the capacity for market participation as an agent of neoliberalism. Next, the impact first is they kill the same mentality. The periphery of life are defined only by their economic value. They least this cause devaluation of life that creates discardable population and infinitely lowers the for violence which justifies all collapse to damage that just destroys innocent lives and wasting mentality where we're convinced that we have to save humanity by destroying part of it. This also turns the case because it perpetuates a view that there's no alternative to the present reality. We become convinced that the social problems are a result of market laws and that they have not been fully applied. This inevitably leads to an impact of market-centered society that infinitely reproduces status quo, make political alternatives impossible. The alternative?
Can you say turns case and then go case?
Yeah, turns case. Next.
Bill.
No,
It's case.
turns case.
Cool.
Okay. First argument is that on advantage one. First argument is that short-term governmental policies and financial tricks are capable of solving it before you reach a terminal impact. Also, no economic collapse because China would step in since their economy relies on ours. On advantage two, food aid internationally solves USAID, EU, UN, UNICEF, and WHO, and NGOs all solve. Also, you don't solve it internally to being able to access democracy. Not an argument why you solve political instability within the region in case that you don't have an internal link to solving government.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go on paper.
You just want to talk.
I'll get close to Mitch.
I understand. I also feel close to my partner.
And I just,
Okay, makes sense. Well, let's see what.
the order is going to be new off, and then case, in order.
Then include background.
No, I mean, it'll include solvency wherever you have that fluid. And then it will be a criticism. And then it'll be the decoupling Amberbox subsidies counterplan. And then it's going to be the EU counterplan. And it's going to be the just out on the bottom. This is like this nowadays.
Where's the case in that order?
The case is right after the new office.
Sorry.
Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
What?
One sec.
Oh.
So you went that way. Cool. First, I was condo raise our interpretation negative one conditional advocacy, negative one conditional advocacy B is a violation of favoring 3 conditional advocacy C, or the standard's first argument strategy keep the
2, 3, well, the K and 2 counter plans. So 3 conditional advocacies. The Sealing Standards 1 strategy, the affirmative has a low rate of winning in a world where you get essentially 4 worlds to go for. You can either go through for the status quo, the K, or either counterplan, which indicates that we are always going to lose in that scenario. We can't bring our best arguments against any of your advocacies because you can always make cross applications that are going to be damning for us in the PMR. But the next argument is that you can always go for the 1 or 2 positions that we are going to undercover, which indicates that we are always going to lose in this scenario. This collapses the debate in the world where the affirmative always loses. But the next argument, we can't get any of the offense back that we were against your position, which always means that we're going to lose the debate. The second is one conditional advocacy solve literally 100% of your offense. You should get 2 worlds to work with because that is the responsible burden for the MG. But in the world where I have to fight back against 4 worlds, there's literally no way to answer all that T. Or the voters from our first argument is a priori. You need to evaluate the rules of the game before you play them. The next argument is my global MG strategy has already been altered, which indicates that the abuse has already happened around this a voting issue. You should evaluate this competing interpretation. Most of that benefit is the voting issue for ground fairness. Case. Extend across the entirety of the solvency arguments and indicate that there's a proactive action by the United States, conditioning it on anything or getting another actor to do it is absolutely going to result in a massive solvency deficit because our common example that we have indicated where the United States is taking a long time to implement any of these restrictions. What would happen as per what would happen via the EU counterplan, but I'll get there. So yeah, just extend across all.
China stepping in would contribute to the consumption level.
Yeah, but the next argument is that China stepping in would contribute to the consumption bubble, which just magnifies the link to our impact. Go to advantage 1. Functionally conceded, you can extend across the entire of the uniqueness arguments that indicate that the talks going around now, but only the United States taking action is going to bring Brazil to the table. Argument is that if we win any risk bid, the United States is going to say no as per the EU counterplan. That we're always going to be winning a massive solvency for surplus for advantage 1. But yeah, extend across all the impacts.
At 2.
They say the global food aid was going to start. That's not true in a world where the United States provides the majority of global food aid, which indicates that is absolutely key to solving for food aid. But they say that we have no solvency for democracy. There is literally not a single warrant to this argument in the world of massive amounts of food rights. That is the world where there is going to be no democracy. Go to K. First argument is that since you don't have an alternative, I can make massive amounts of uniqueness over the ones to link arguments, which indicates that you're going to evaluate this on very low probability. Neoliberalism, capitalism, absolutely inevitable to happen. Way before in the status quo argument is that it is inevitable even in animal societies. You can see monkeys trading in the capitalist system, which indicates it's probably just a part of human nature. Nothing is going to be able to turn it back. But the next argument is that go to the impacts. This is it moves individuals to the periphery because there's going to be no value to life. It justifies all collapse. First, arguments that extinctions are always going to outweigh some nebulous no value to life. I mean, you didn't have life before you have value to life. The second argument is that you can always recover from dehumanizing events. You can look to the Holocaust, where it was an absolutely terrible situation, but there's still narratives and there are still stories about it which indicate that the value to life is durable. But the next argument is The next argument is that Brazil's already in the neoliberal system, which indicates that there is no unique link that the plan provides. Anything else, Mitch? Also, final argument is that the K doesn't dissolve the state, which indicates that their arguments about neoliberalism is absolutely inevitable, absent an alternative that is somehow able to dissolve the state. It means that all of their arguments about how neoliberalism is bad are inevitable. Can I see the plan text, Mitch? Where's the rest of it?
Keep talking.
The first argument is permutation due both literally on the plan, all the counterplan. The second argument is permutation legitimate because both next is the permutation is going to grant us double solvency for advantage 1 and advantage 2 because it is both getting rid of the amber box solvencies, but it's also basing, it's also decoupling these from production, which indicates it's going to be able to solve the entire net benefit that they read up the counterplan arguments. The permutation is not separate because we're still doing all the plan, all the counterplan. But the next argument is is that the permutation is always going to be able to solve better because it seems United it'll solve much better for the FTAA. Advantage because it seems the United States taking double action in order to concede to the demands that Brazil has made in order for them to come to the table for discussion, which means that we're always going to get double solvency. But the next argument are good enough benefit.
It doesn't solve add one because we're still getting subsidies.
Yeah, but the next argument is the counterplan doesn't solve advantage one because there's still going to be massive amounts there's going to be massive amounts of subsidies. Our links are not predicated on the fact that they're coupled to production. Our links are coupled on dependent on the fact that they exist in the first place, which means that absent getting rid of all of them, you're not going to be able to solve for advantage one. That means that advantage one is a disadd to this counterplan. Go to that benefit. They say the country can't compete nationally. Our argument is that the plan solves literally the entirety of this back in a world where we get rid of subsidies entirely. It means that small farmers can compete much better. This is because the majority of the subsidies that are happening now are going to the biggest farms. Essentially, the farms that produce over $200 million in crops are getting the majority of the subsidies now, and also the average income of these farmers is about $500,000 per year, which indicates that these are not the farmers that these subsidies are affecting. Your question?
Are you taking away all subsidies or reducing it as your plan has been?
We're reducing it massively. Like we are effectively, yeah. But the next argument, their impact is biodiversity. They ultimately don't provide full impact to that scenario. 99% of species that have lived on Earth have been extinct at one point, which means that there's absolutely no bright line for you to vote on biodiversity. But the next argument is that they're winning absolutely no uniqueness to this position, so you probably should not evaluate very highly. Next counterplan. Go to solvency. The first argument is that the EU will say no. Our argument is that the EU is under a massive amount of distress right now. Greece and Italy are in absolutely terrible economic times, which indicates that they have absolutely no incentive to say yes to this offer. The second argument is that this counterplan is going to be able to solve the Brazil advantage, which indicates that the United States has to take an unprecedented step in order to fulfill the request of Brazil. In order for that to be able to solve advantage one argument is that conditioning it on EU involvement. A looks to Brazil like the United States is not fully down for this agreement, but B, it also leaves open the possibility that the EU is going to say no. Any risk of that means that you evaluate advantage one as a disadd to the counterplan. But anything else, Mitch? I'm not go to disadd. What arguments?
ECB already guaranteed unlimited buyouts.
The first argument is that ECB already guaranteed unlimited buyouts, which indicates that Germany is not a key actor in this scenario. But the next argument is that they have also indicated that there will be a lender of last resort, which essentially nullifs the entirety of this disadd. But the next argument is that in a world where the EU says no, you don't get a link to this disadd, which means that if we're winning any risk of that argument on the counterplan, you evaluate this disadd with very low probability. But the next argument is that they say that this is a keystone of the economy in a world where these economies have already been failing in the status quo, where there hasn't been the economic collapse. Shouldn't evaluate that impact.
Order is critical case term. Advantage one, advantage two. Decoupling. Conditionality. Counterplan. EU disadd. Does anyone need that again?
Yes.
Okay. The order is the critical case term that was on a separate sheet. Case in their order. The decoupling counterplan, the new conditionality sheet, the EU counterplan, and then the EU German leadership disadd.
Sorry,
No, you're
Let me make sure I got this right. Critical case term, add one, add two, decoupling, condo, EU, disadd. Cool. Okay.
Wait, there's an EU counterplan, not a condition counterplan?
Or
What?
yeah, it's going I know, yes.
Ah,
Jesus.
it involves. Actually, I'm going for the Marx K we read. Okay, everyone good now?
I think I missed that one.
Travis, can you just not flow?
Working on it.
What's new? Saying move on.
I was gonna say, that's just porn.
Oh, you can see.
Gotta turn the screen brightness down. Megan, we're ready.
Is everyone good?
Yep.
Okay. First in the critical case for no offense not going for inevitable. There's no ability to generate offense on the case debate. Working within the capital itself, the entire case debate, you get the example of confidence and we're not being able to solve for the short-term capital example doing this because the only results from the entire concept is this we're bound saying that the most unique to bring Brazil to the table because it shows the United States is not only willing to act for Brazil, but bring other international actors to the table. Brazil needs this because they need to be pressure the international community, which they need the United States back behind them in order for their economy to grow and for them to structure, which is what the WTO complains about in the first place, advantage to. Using U.S. as local food aid is capable of solving can use a couple of other international organizations. In addition, the European Union gives massive amounts of food aid more than the United States does. In addition, there's no wars, controlling democratization argument doesn't matter. We're going to be able to solve this better because we solve for food aid from multiple companies and solve for these problems. The capital is the only thing that's capable of solving for these economies with the democracy advantage because we stop all of the subsidies that are going to Brazil and not only the subsidies that are coming from the United States. Decoupling. First class permutation do both. Now I said they got capitalist test competition, no ability for them to generate offense, no ability for them to generate offense off of this. You get biodiversity law and using biodiversity laws here. That's not going to
It's inevitable.
yes, that's fine. Conditionality. First argument is counter-truncation. The negative team gets two conditional counter plans. Two conditional counter plans. Next argument is that we need your truncation. Your violation says that we read three conditional adequacy, whereas when we read two, this is the misunderstanding of the way that the debate functions. That means that you vote on the text will involve violation of. Therefore, argument to make us predict what the command said. The next argument is the next argument is that we need your truncation. Kick it down to one counter plan within the MO, because you can ample time within the PR to be able to make strategic decisions, which is good. This is key to be able to force and put pressure on the MG because PR doesn't speak last, which means that strategic decision making is influential for the fundamental debate world, which we don't get to read multiple conditional adequacies. The next argument is often on interpretation. The first is education. First argument is that this is the MDT and hard debate is good debate. You can just rub some dirt in it. We articulate that being able to have rapid debate is key to being able to understand multiple policies that are existing within the world of the status quo. This is the key to research because allows us to understand the multiple ways in which policies function. In addition to key word education, because policymakers uniquely have to decide between multiple different competing policy options, not just one policy option, which means that the key word education is also this is the best because these are the two reasons why the base cable get funded because the research it generates and because of the rule of applicability, which means it's controlling the best term link we control the best term link to the structure of the activity. The next offense is fairness. We articulate that the world which we only get one conditional counter plan. You can win a disadvantage. You can win a disadvantage counter plan outweighs the case, which means that you're capable of winning without upholding the burden of the 1AC to prove that it's better than the counter plan. This is that flips the word which restores fairness and the debate round doesn't give the negative team ability to make strategic decisions. Next one, the defense. First argument is the strategy is inevitable. We use it that we go for 4 roles. However, the roles we go for 5 disadvantages and 6 top-calorie violations. This still chooses your strategy because you get like RBIs on top. You get RBIs on top calorie go away. If we are capable of going away, we make one argument, then answers all 4 of them. In addition, strategy is inevitable because according to basic make strategic decisions means that we have to be capable of doing this in critical thinking, which is in terms of education, cross like above all. Next argument, you make a time speed is inevitable. We're going to time speed is inevitable. Some people are supposed to be faster than one another. In addition, we can be multiple to paper. You say this class debate, that's not true empirically or with class. As soon as people start spreading, you read conditional adequacy, the debate around the fact that class get bruises. Next argument, you make is you're not going to offense back for your piece of paper. The first argument is you can turn the disadvantage to the disadvantage to the counterplan, which forces you going for the counterplan instead of doing other things. The next argument is the ability to generate offense on counterplans. It is also offense for your 1AC add-ons or people solving these back. The next are all add-ons to your 1AC or people solving these back because they function both as offense for you and as disadvantage to the counterplan. The next argument is you say it's all 100% for addicts. That's not true. We say the negative flexibility is uniquely key because the forces critical thinking and education as well as multiple types of educational research. The next argument is that as long as it's not a federal vote in a priority because we kick down, reject the one counterplan, not the team. The next argument is please global blends. Do you check this is true? Critical thinking is good. Yes.
Or stick us to all the offense
or stick us to all the offense on all of the sheets of paper. That's the only thing that they win if they win conditionality. Don't reject the team. They could have made offense and decided not to. EU counterplan. We are the only ones who are controlling how the European Union would react in this debate, right? How the European Union would react. We give you analysis that the EU and the United States are working together right now on a trade deal that would decrease subsidies in both countries. The European Union is willing to do this as long as the United States does because it means they're capable of maintaining their competitive edge. They are willing to negotiate. They're willing to negotiate with the world of the status quo, willing to negotiate with the United States. And they would say yes because their finance minister has said this is a very important issue. However, in a world in which the Europe and the United States cut their subsidies without addressing Europe or without addressing Europe, we would trigger the link to the disadvantage, which means Europe would be unable to cut their subsidies in the future. I'll explain this in a second on the line. You say you said no because of mathematics, economic stress. We articulate that we want to move within this direction because their economies move away from an agricultural economy, caused by uniqueness from a disadvantage. In addition, this means they're capable of increasing trade ties with the United States, which would have a massive surplus in the trade deal that's currently being passed, which would solve this. Next, the capitalism to solve the Brazil advantage because it's not present in the staff cross-line case debate. We say it's more radical because it puts the United States on their side. Is that? Over here on the dissent? Artisan says that right now, two things. The UNITA says two things. One is that the European EU trade deal is moving forward. The next argument is that the Cyprus bailout deal is not going to go through because Cyprus is going to reject it, and then they're not going to get funded. We articulate our link level debate that if the United States removes their subsidies, then Cyprus is going to be capable of pressuring the EU into giving them a better trade deal because now they think that the EU has an economic advantage in other areas, which means that they have the money to be able to fund a better trade deal for Cyprus. Our internal links say that this funding Germany would have to concede its funding in the role of the 1AC, which would lead to a run on German banks, lack of investment confidence, which would then collapse the European economy, which would be isolated as a key internal link to the international economy. Go to line by line. You say the ECB guarantees unlimited buyouts. This is what our unique story says. We say that unlimited buyouts, but Cyprus isn't accepting. They were already given a bailout deal, but they're not accepting that this happened on Friday. This happened over the weekend. We're saying the Cyprus bailout deal they didn't accept from the EU, which indicates that Germany is losing their ability to pressure them. The ECB is losing their ability to pressure them because they think that they can get more money out of them. However, Europe's capable of taking a strong stance in the status quo because they have the stance that they are economically vulnerable in order to be able to fall back on. The 1AC eliminates this because it gives the European a competitive advantage in subsidies, means that by increasing Europe's subsidies market, they gain a competitive advantage over the United States and can increase exports, therefore generating more revenue for the EU, so Cyprus thinks they can get more money. You say that they let down as the last resort cross-life from the unique story. You say the EU says no to explain to me, cross-life, because it's a low probability cross-life, and then the EU and the United States are trying to cooperate on this within a world status quo. They're going to say yes. In addition, they're going to say yes because the economies, they're going to say yes because the economies of places such as things like Germany who control the massive part of the EU, the northern European countries are not agriculturally based, so they're more likely to say yes. They're the ones who control the European Union, which means that they'll see the demands that aren't capable of being pressured by other countries into not saying yes. Don't let them make new extrapolations from the PMR argument coming out. Don't let them make new PMR arguments. The next argument they say that they're failing within the world of status quo. Our argument is that they're capable of reviving within the world of status quo because the run on German banks hasn't happened yet. How the German banks are capable of being stable within the world of status quo. They're pissed off, they're on the brink, they're not going over that. Unique story indicates that people are going to restore their confidence within the German banks because of their ability to stop the Cyprus deal from going through. This would indicate a rebound of the European economy, which you then furthermore we isolate a specific scenario which says that in the world of this, the T-bills from China would move from Europe into the United States, which would cause a rapid amount of inflation. This sudden change within the economic system causes a double dip recession, which leads to the extinction. Furthermore, I want to argue that this completely turns both of your advantages, because in a world in which the EU has to expand their subsidies because it's the only way they can be economically competitive, this means they're going to give more subsidies to Brazil, which makes both of your arguments inevitable and probably means rollback because the United States will inevitably try to increase in Brazil in order to fight back against the European Union. In addition, you don't get any democracy advantages or fruited advantages because subsidies are still existing. No ability for you to generate offense in this debate round.
The order is Condo, counterplan, this. Thanks, Megan. Actually, I mean, it's really just going to be a discussion of Condo and then a discussion of this. So,
You want it over a separate sheet of paper for your unlocking?
if that's how you guys want to follow it. Okay. I will address the substantive level of this debate because I think that we are just waxing them on the counterplan, solving 100% of their case, and the dissent independently outweighing their case. But I think that the more likely PMR strategy in this round will be conditionality is bad because that is the only option that the PMR really has for offense in this debate because you are losing so hard on the substance of this debate, conditionality. We will control stronger internal into education because we increase critical thinking by forcing you into multiple worlds. Hard debate is good debate. The point of the NPTE is to be hard. We control the internal into the structure of the debate and the structure of this tournament specifically. This type of education is better because unfairness is absolutely inevitable. There are some debaters who are faster. There are some we could read a ton of Tom Callie's or a ton of dissents, which would in the same way skew you out of all the ground, all the strategy, predictability that you talk about, which means that you don't have a unique link to the offense that you're trying to extrapolate. Also, we say that education determines how funding is allocated to programs, which indicates that education is a better determiner of where funding actually goes, which means that it is better for the sustainability of the activity. Look, if we premise the funding of the activity based entirely on fairness, then we would allocate funding entirely based on what teams do what, which means that when your team won NPTE a few years ago, then they would have enormously increased the budget for your school, but guess what? You are still a small program. I think that it's wrong, but I think that it's a very clear example of how education is a better determiner for how funding gets allocated in programs. Also, the discussion of the topic is the only thing that we have predictably to rely on what gets researched, which means that it is the only thing that we both know coming into the round. So education about the topic is the most predictable thing that are internal links to education as well as fairness. Also, you should air on conditionality because we do not get a chance to respond. The PMR at best or at worst stick us with all the offense that they read on all of our advocacies, both of our counter plans. Unfortunately, there was not offense read against either of the counter plans in the MG, which means that this is a problem with MG execution, not a problem with our strategy. Substantive. You've heard it before and I'll say it again. Risk is a function of magnitude times probability, where probability is determined by the strength of your solvency times the empirics, your empirical consistency. Unfortunately, you are not winning any sort of claim for solvency in this instance. We say that the European Union comparatively, the counter plan where we have a recondition on European Union action comparatively solves better, which means that the strength of the affirmative solvency versus the strength of the counter plan solvency is very weak. You do not have a risk of winning, and Europe has no argument, which means that if there's a 1% risk that Europe does say yes, then the dissat independently outweighs the offense that is coming off of the 1AC. Furthermore, you are not winning a magnitudinal impact in comparison to the impact of the dissat because we control the internal links to you being able to access both of the impacts on both the advantages. First, we control the time frame and the internal links of both of the advantages. On advantage one, I think that Brazil wants more international contribution. That is the analysis that Megan is giving you for why the European Union would be particularly beneficial in this instance. Brazil wants more international contribution than just the United States involvement, which means that we're capable of solving with better European Union relations also by predicating European Union predicating U.S. action on European Union action, which means that the more agents that we get involved via the counter plan, the better off Brazil will be, which means that we solve the relation, we solve your advantage one better. Addition, we are also the internal link to you being able to solve advantage one, advantage two. European Union gives more food aid than the U.S., which means we directly solve the impact of advantage two better. This is a solvency surplus. You probably should have read a permutation on this counter plan. Additionally, we say that there are also other international organizations. The U.S. is not key for food distribution. There should be a more intrinsic impact to your advantage. I think this is very clear that international organizations are obviously capable of resolving this. UNICEF. Okay, the dissent. A double-dip recession makes war and conflict much more likely, also leads to a rollback of your 1AC, which means that if we get a 1% risk of our dissent, we control and the reversal of the internal links for your 1AC. This means that your 1AC is not reverse causal. You cannot confirm that the action, that the impact of the 1AC gets resolved by the action of the plan, which means you evaluate it at lower probability than the assuredness of the counterplan.
No. With normally on top.
With that foot on top of that.
Yeah.
Anybody not ready?
Aye.
All right. All the arguments are not unique to represent or predicated on the fact or self-harm back 100% backed by our interpretation. They can have one conditional counter plan because they can still get multiple advocacies under one conditional counter plan because they get the counter plan and the status quo, which are two policy options which they can go for. So one common means that they get both of these line by line. First on that, we need their interpretation. They do have three advocacies. There is two counter plans and status quo, which is an option conditional counter plan. So you never meet our interpretation. You never meet our interpretation. Additionally, their counter interpretation isn't unique to any of their standards debate. Their first argument is key to education, but good debate or hard debate is good debate. Look, the fair debate is going to be a lot better. You have just made the debate really hard for us, but made it really easy for you, which means that even if you're going for the standard, you don't even get access to the standard because it's only hard for us and really easy for you. So even if you want hard debate, then you're never giving out your interpretation. Next argument is they say we need to have policy options, but in case you can plan a status quo, which means you have multiple policy options. Two, in order to go for the you also saying that you you have one counter plan ML. This is probably just wrong because you start the ML and you have two counter plans is indication and does not meet our strategy skew that because the MG is already given after the when the ML happens, which means that our strategy skew has already happened because the MG has already had to allocate this time in a lot of different areas. It literally takes you 2 seconds to kick a counter plan, whereas the MG has to spend significantly more time on each one in order to have a risk of being able to beat it in PMR. The next argument they say is that they say the stress use inevitable, or they say time skew, or they see stress use inevitable. They can just read a bunch of other team terms or a lot of other things. Our argument is probably that this doesn't cause the same kind of strategy skew because all these team interpretations are going to be really bad. Wouldn't link to us anyway. And just there's already a high enough threshold in the community against a lot of procedurals and theory positions. Do people want to going for that's something they're used to. It means that that's not a unique reason why that would be worse off for us. Additionally, they say time skew is inevitable. We're not complaining about time skew. You're probably a lot faster than us. We're not complaining about speed. We're complaining about the fact that the MG has to change his whole strategy in the MG and essentially continuously undercover all these positions because we spend significantly more time, whereas they can just kick it in 2 seconds, which means that we'll never be able to put enough offense. Additionally, they are continuing our argument that they can cross by the arm, so we're putting on the counter plan to our own positions and solvency deficits, which means that every argument that the MG makes also goes against us in the MO when they're kicking their positions. Additionally, then we can never get this offense back. They're trying to make this argument that we can stick to the offense, but this is just not true. I don't know what their interpretation of the conditional counter plan is, but we can never actually do this. The next argument is that it's critical education. Look, the multiple running conditional advocacies doesn't encourage critical education. It just encourages reading a ton of different positions that are arbitrarily competitive and solve for really nebulous dissets like the German unification. We will never be able to predict where the German unification is going to be the disset that we're going to be going up against, and what we're trying to seed agricultural policy demands of Brazil, which means especially in a small team like they're indicating we only have 3 people to research. We can't even cover the topics that we're studying in the first place. This is a uniquely bad for education. Additionally, the fact that they're spreading out all these different positions means there's no education on the actual substance that's happening in the debate, like the economics behind what's going to happen in the free trade area, which is probably uniquely better for education because we can always get critical education from other locations. We only have a chance to talk about international trade policy and what we're actually talking about the cases instead of all these arbitrary counterplans. Yeah?
Their interpretations that they have 2 conditional counterplans, they don't meet it because they run 2 conditional counterplans and they have the K, even if it doesn't have an alt, it's still.
Okay. Back up their counter-interpretation. Their counter-interpretation that they run 2, that they get 2 conditional counterplan. They run 2 conditional. That's okay. They say they reject the argument. They say they reject. The next argument is flexibility is fine, which is why you're saying that you get a counter plan and your counter interpretation is not unique. You can still have a lot of strategic utility for running counter plans theories, and still have access to the status code, which means that there's no bright line for net flexibility. There's no bright line for what net flexibility, how much net flexibility is needed. We say that our interpretation probably resolved all this. The next argument is reject. The next thing is reject the argument about the team. You should probably reject the team because they spent 6 minutes answering this position in the ML and the LR, which means that probably they even spent more time on this than this, which means that my only chance of winning this piece of paper is going for the PMR, which is a unique reason that you should be rejecting the team, not us. And then the voters. You also reject the team because it's not for ownership for French education, so full conceded, and the amount of abuse that we've already proven that goes full conceded that the MG has already been skewed, which means that you in this piece of paper first, yeah?
And also rejecting the team creates a shared understanding.
Additionally, rejecting the team creates a shared understanding for what to expect from here on out, and where you actually start voting on multi-conditional salary bad is where we can actually get traction in order to change the debate community away from these kinds of things and solve back to the strategic skew that happens in the future. That's right. That's right. It's a lot of work.
That's actually kind of